Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here, for coming tonight. My name is Nicola. I'm the co-founder of Crowdonomic. Crowdonomic is the largest and fast-growing crowdfunding company in Southeast Asia. We launched our business in 2013. We are a financial technology company, and we are based here in KL and in Singapore, but we are Asia play. We receive, as of today, more than 1,500 fundraising requests. We work in collaboration with large corporates like telco company, like startup in Singapore or Indosat in Indonesia, media company like MediaCorp and Channel New Asia, and or more global scale with WWF and Her Tower on crowdfunding and crowdsourcing project. We are a financial technology organization. We are expert in crowdfunding. We have headcount in Singapore, Malaysia, and Indonesia. And the management team has more than 35 years of experience in fundraising, investment, and strategy in general. So this is a bit about ourselves. Let's try to understand who are you. How many of you are entrepreneurs? All right, okay. Or entrepreneur wannabe? All right, okay. Okay, good. How many of you are investors? Okay. How many of you are planning to launch a crowdfunding platform? So how many competitors I have in the audience? 1, 2, okay. Okay, good, good. So I'm here tonight to tell you 3 things. One is why it's a great time to be an entrepreneur in Malaysia. The second is to explain you how crowdfunding is going to change the way we are raising funds today. And the third one, I'll give you some advice if you want to raise funds through a crowdfunding platform, how to maximize the chance to get to your target. Right, look at this picture. The fundraising process and the fundraising regulation hasn't changed in the last 80 years. The rest of the world changed completely. But the way we are raising funds is still the same as those guys are doing. You need to contact investors. You need to try to arrange a meeting. You need to go meet them, show your case, show your paper, your business plan, try to convince them, and then move on to the next meeting, right? Still exactly the same since the Great Depression. Yet the problem is still the same, right? The number one obstacle for a company, for a young company to grow to the next stage is access to capital. 40% of the entrepreneur, startup, and SMEs in Asia, they're saying that access to capital, being able to finance their business, is the major obstacle for them to grow to the next stage. How we are going to change that? How crowdfunding is going to change that? Well, we are going to accelerate the fundraising by leveraging on technology, internet, and social media. The fundraising process is going to be through crowdfunding real time. You're going to be able to access to a larger number of potential investors. You're not going to get only money, but you're going to get also validation of your business idea or your business proposal, and it's going to be much faster. So why is a great time to be an entrepreneur here in Malaysia? Because Malaysia is about to be the first country, or one of the first countries in Southeast Asia to modernize the way we can raise money, right? We can do fundraising. There is a new regulatory framework on the way which will allow equity crowdfunding to operate in Malaysia. So how is the fundraising right now? Well, if you are thinking of do fundraising now, you should know that you cannot do general solicitation, so you are not able to let people know or advertise that you are doing fundraising because you are selling securities, equity, right? You can ask for you can have a prospectus that will allow you to do some public disclosure, but it's a very costly process. And even if you get it, there are some limitations on the type of investor and number of investors you can accept, you can contact. So as of now, the fundraising process is an extremely difficult process and extremely restricted activity, right? How is it going to be different? Well, it's going to be much, much easier to advertise your offer, therefore let people know that you are raising money. You can fully utilize social media and the internet to try to contact investors. And you will be able to use all online process and template to simplify the process. So how is going to be the fundraising process in the future? It's still going to be a difficult process because it's never easy to raise money, right? But you will be equipped with modern tools to make it more efficient. So let's see what you will be able to do when the new regulatory framework will come in place. First, who's going to be able to raise money? All Malaysian private limited companies, all Malaysian regulated companies will be able to raise money through crowdfunding platform, regardless if they are locally owned or foreign owned. And also, if you are planning to raise a fund, like a VC funds, you will be able to source for investor to equity crowdfunding platform. How much you will be able to raise? So if you are a private limited company, you will be able to raise 3 million ringgit, right, in one campaign, and in total 5 million ringgit spread across multiple campaigns. If you are planning to raise a fund, there is no limit on how much you can raise. Not only you will be able to raise money for a primary issuing of shares, so people will give you money, you will need to issue a new share to compensate there for the money that you receive, so they will be your shareholder. But it will also be allowed to do secondary trade. So if you are an investor, you own shares in a company, right? Instead of waiting for the next exit IPO to cash in, you will be able to trade, say, basically sell under particular condition your shares. Advertising, as I said, it will be more, it will be easier to advertise. You can use social media. The only condition that the framework imposed that all the advertisements should go back to your campaign on a registered equity crowdfunding campaign. So who are the investors? Who can invest through a crowdfunding campaign into your eventual campaign? So there are three different types of investor. The sophisticated investor, the professional investor, people, VC, people that are already doing this for business now, for work. They can invest how much they want, uncapped. The angel investor, people that are like sophisticated enough, that have done it before, that they know which type of asset class they are investing in. They can invest maximum 500,000 ringgit per year and maximum 50,000 ringgit per deals. And then there are the retailers, meaning everyone else. They will also be allowed to buy shares of your company if they want. Maximum they can invest in 50,000 ringgit in 1 year, and maximum per deal is 5,000 ringgit. Right, so let's look now how crowdfunding works and why it's going to be a game changer right here in Malaysia. First of all, just a line on what equity crowdfunding is. Crowdfunding in general is the term that is used where many people come together to directly invest in one project, right? It's done through online process. If you are an entrepreneur, you want to raise money, you will launch your offer in a registered crowdfunding campaign. This offer will be, or you will have to spread and advertise to social media, your community, and even more. If people like your idea, they will be able to invest, right? If you, during the period of 1 or 2 months, the duration of the campaign, you are able to reach the target that you want to achieve, then the fundraising process is considered successful. You will receive the money. You will need to issue the share to your investor that will become your shareholder. As easy as that. So why is going to be a game changer? Well, basically because it delivers a lot of value both to startup, entrepreneur, and investor. For startup, it's an efficient way to reach out many investors in one goal, right? Online, you can access investors in Malaysia, abroad, in one goal. It's been proven that you can raise millions of dollars as a matter of, a few weeks. And it's going to be much faster to raise money. As of now, if you do a fundraising campaign offline, typically it takes 6 to 9 months to complete a fundraising campaign. Through crowdfunding, you will be able to raise money in 2 or 3 months, right? So why investor likes crowdfunding? One, because they have a centralized place to go and source for deals, right? Instead of going around in events, demo days, trying to meet investors, they go there, single place, all the information that they need to make the first screening, right? The second is that because with equity crowdfunding, they will be able to invest small amount, small ticket, they will be able to diversify their investment. So they're therefore investing in more deals and create more like a portfolio, right? The third reason is the crowdsourced due diligence, right? This is a very important concept of crowdfunding. It's by having a lot of people looking through your offer, looking through your campaign, expressing a judgment, making questions, and eventually a lot of them deciding to invest, they're actually validating your deals. Because all these people, they have different skills, different expertise, and they're all looking at probably different aspects of this business. If you manage to convince enough people, it's a due diligence process by itself. Right? Second reason why it's going to be a game changer is because if we are looking at campaigns that went through equity crowdfunding fundraising, they're actually enjoying a better life after a crowdfunding campaign. If you're looking at the business survival rate, 86% of the company that raise money to equity crowdfunding after 5 years, they are still there, they're still alive, versus a normal ratio, which is 50%, right? But not only they are still there, 71% of them, they are engaged or they've closed a second round of investment, right? So what does it mean? It means that not only you have, if you close a crowdfunding round, not only you have a better chance to be there after 5 years as a business, but it means that you will still be attractive to investors. And this is probably a second round, so it's probably very professional investor. VCs, not PE, right? And from investor point of view, we are seeing now investors that invested in a company through a crowdfunding campaign, they start to get exit. There's one company who 2013 closed a fundraising round. That last year went IPO in the US, and the people that invest in that company, they receive basically a multiple of 10 of their investment in just 1 year. So great stuff both from entrepreneur and investors. Third reason is that equity crowdfunding is for everyone, right? Whereas, if you are a technology entrepreneur, that more or less, there are people out there that are looking to invest in you. VC, angels, the technology vertical usually well covered by investors. Equity crowdfunding, you can raise money through equity crowdfunding even if your business is in different verticals. As I said, technology is the first adopter. Like Revoke is the company I told you that they raised money in 2013 through equity crowdfunding, and they went IPO in 2014. If you have a business or a business idea more in the consumer space, on the retail space, you can also do crowdfunding campaign. You can also try to find investors, right? Whereas now, usually these people, they raise money through family and friends. Real estate also is quite successful in the equity crowdfunding space. Hard Rock Cafe, for example, launched a crowdfunding campaign to raise money for an hotel in Palm Springs. And again, if you're thinking of launching a fund, a VC fund, you will also be able to do crowdfunding for investors, for LPs of your funds. And 500 startups have done that in the States. Right, now let me tackle a bit what are the common equity crowdfunding concerns, right? So online investment, high risk of fraud, right? As of now, there is no case of fraud. It's all very transparent. People, processes, information. The cost of misbehavior is very, very high. I will be stuck with managing thousands of investors. I will be forced to go public if not doing an IPO after fundraising through equity crowdfunding. It's not true. If the number of shareholders is too large, they can be wrapped into investment vehicles, and you as an entrepreneur, as a startup, you will just see one investor, which is the investment company. And all the crowdfunding investor will be investor in that company. Because you need to show information about your business, your idea, people are concerned that competitors will steal their ideas, right? Well, if you're planning to launch a crowdfunding campaign, you will have a full control of the information that you want to display, right? So you can put out there whatever you feel comfortable and keep all the rest for, to send it only on demand or to people that you trust or the people you have vetted before, right? So it's in your control how much you want to share about your company, your idea. The last concern we often heard is about all these non-professional investors coming to the game, right? So they say, well, the market will be overflowed by non-value add capital, right? So there are two things here. So one, again, if you don't want an investor, you can refuse them, right? If you're seeing, for example, one of the competitors that they want to invest in your company, you say, no, thank you, or thank you, but no, right? The second is that, yes, it's true, maybe a large part of those investors won't be professional investors, but they might be professional in your business, right? They might be, if you are, I don't know, in the health space, you have a mobile app for doctor, maybe you have a lot of doctors that want to invest in your company, right? Which brings not only money, but maybe contact, maybe potential commercial contract. So look at also at investor in this way. Great, so now, okay, we are ready to launch a crowdfunding campaign. What do you need to do? What is about? What you need to be focused on, right? Let's look at what are the best practice. Okay, first of all, if you're planning to do an equity crowdfunding campaign, you will have in our website, you will need to have the profile of your company. We strongly suggest to have this profile even if you are not planning to launch a campaign soon. Because the way you interact, the investor, they come to know you, it takes some time, right? They want to know you, they want to get familiar with your idea, the progress of your startup. So start to build your presence online, have your company profile page, keep updated, right? And then when you're ready, you can launch an offer. So what you need to be focused on? Well, the idea is that you need to build credibility about you are the right people, company, business to invest on, right? So first, talk about your team, your people on your board, demonstrate that you are you have the relevant expertise and credential to make the business successful. When you create an offer, try to propose an attractive evaluation. And remember always to explain to a potential investor how you plan to return their money. So what is your exit strategy, right? If you have partnership client, make sure that you state it, right? This is a great way to show traction. If you can get endorsement from client, from expert in your industry, stated, make sure that you put that as well. If you have any type of asset, IP, particular technology, any competitive advantage, make sure that you put it there as well. Then there are additional information. This is the basic, but the additional information is like you can put your business plan, you can put your investor pitch, you can put your P&L, forecast. Those are more like sensible information that if you want, you can put it there, or you want to keep it and maybe just release to a qualified investor if you feel comfortable. Second point, very, very important, is about the video. Most of the investors will never meet you, especially the one that will put very little amount. They will probably never had the chance to speak with you or meet you in person. So the video is the only way they have to get to know you as a person, right? So what you need to do about the video and visual in general. One, make sure that, you show your face. Second, that you sell the dream and the vision that you have about your business, right? But not only dream and vision, make also sure that you explain how you are able to execute the business, right? Again, the video is important. It doesn't have to be a super professional video, but it has to be well done. The format is as good as the content in this context, right? What you should not do is like be vague, be boring, awkward, and not show your face and only talk about your business. Oh, sorry. So now you're ready to launch a campaign. The last thing which is very important to remember is that is all about community engagement. Why? So first of all, make sure that you have a plan, a marketing plan ready, and make sure that you know which segment and which potential investor you want to contact, you want to get involved. Why? Because if you look at the anatomy of a successful campaign, people that managed to raise the money that they wanted, most of the money comes in the first week or two, right? What does it mean? That even if you have 2 months to raise money, in reality, most of the game they are done the first part, the first 2-3 weeks. Because you need to get people excited, you need to create newsworthy news that get viral, and you need to make people feel urgent or like, feel that they're missing an opportunity if they're not invest, right? So these things you need to prepare before you go live. Right, so if you're ready to launch a campaign, or if you're looking for fundraise, what we are looking for Malaysian registered company. We are looking for people that are full-time in the business and motivated. You need to be at least MVP stage, right, or older. And sector, tech, retail, F&B, consumer, internet, that's fine. There are a lot of investors out there that are open to look at any verticals. What we are here to offer as a Crowdonomic, we have a network of international investors. We are constantly in contact with them in Southeast Asia, in Asia, and Europe and US. We can support you in creating a top-of-the-industry campaign. We have the expertise, financial expertise, fundraising expertise, strategy expertise. We are there to help you. If you are not familiar with the process, if you are not familiar with the documentation, you don't know what's a shareholder agreement, you don't know what's a term sheet, you don't know how to calculate how to evaluate your company, we can help you and support in that. Obviously, we will take care of all the transaction and the execution, right, of the offer. And at the end, we are expert in crowdfunding. We've been doing that for a while, so you can trust us on that. Right, so if you're looking to fundraising, in the next 6 to 12 months, contact us, drop us an email, or go to our website, crowdonomic.vc. You can drop your email, say if you are an investor, entrepreneur, and we will contact you. If you're passionate about crowdfunding, if you're looking for a job, we are also hiring. So, so few positions open. So again, if you think it is something that is is close to your interest, and you're a smart and motivated person, just contact us.
In Malaysia or Singapore?
Malaysia.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah,
okay.
So I think basically what Nicola has mentioned, I think there are two kinds of ways you can approach this. If you're an entrepreneur, you're a startup, how can crowdfunding help you raise funds rather than going to our government to ask for grant money all the time? Please stop doing that. Or as an investor, you want to know about your risks. It's like, what if they don't perform and stuff like that, and how much you can invest, blah, 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 stuff like that. Those are the questions that you can ask. Anyone who has questions? Great. Because you're the first to put up your hand, you shall be now appointed the mic runner.
How's the traction you're getting from Malaysia compared to the rest of Southeast Asia?
Yeah, so as of now, equity crowdfunding, we haven't launched yet, right?
Is there a date to it?
So the process that follow.
Video.
Yes, so
what?
I won't say any date. So the process that follow, we are waiting, is a regulated space, right? So you're probably familiar with reward-based crowdfunding, right? Where Kickstarter or Crowdonomic or other company. So when you can raise money by giving exchange product or service at discount, that is open and running. We are, as I said, we're receiving more than 1,000 projects. Good chunk of them are from Malaysia. This is one part of crowdfunding. What we are talking about here is equity crowdfunding, which is you raise money in exchange of share of your company. Because you are exchanging security share, this is regulated by the Security Commission in Malaysia, right? So there is a new regulation coming in place in Malaysia that will allow people like you to raise money to people like us. So this regulation went through a public consultation, so the framework is ready. Now it's been tabled for Parliament approval. So timing, everybody say very soon. So we are waiting for the Parliament to say it's good.
I know that this is so new that not many countries have adopted it. US is not taking, I think it's like basically letting the Asian companies go, basically play around first. So Singapore is into equity crowdfunding as well, right?
Yes.
Have they launched it, or is it same stage as Malaysia?
So maybe,
is it on? Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe so when we started in 2013, crowdfunding was really treated as a niche, or it was for primarily for donations and social causes and so on. I think what we see by now is that every major market in Asia Pacific is at different stages of introducing equity crowdfunding, right? The reason why you need to get the regulators and the all the governments and politicians involved is because of the changes in the rules, right? So what Crowdonomic does is we go to every major market, we meet with regulators and central banks and so on, to say that, look, if you really want to grow entrepreneurship and foster your SME sector as well, you need to change the rules, right? Because it's absolutely ridiculous that as a startup, you need to spend 6 to 9 months distracted from your business to do capital raising based on rules which are close to a century old, right? So we've been active in most Southeast Asian markets. So Maverick mentioned about Singapore. So Singapore has issued the first what we believe to be a series of consultation papers, right? Because of the conservative nature of some of the regulators, they'll do it piecemeal like that, right? Malaysia is by far one of the most innovative and pioneering markets we've seen. So we benchmark, some of the rules that Nicola saw earlier, and it's far more progressive and open and inclusive compared to some of the other markets, right?
Wow, okay.
So US is known as like the pioneer for equity crowdfunding, but by now they're actually the laggard, right? So they have, it's a bit of a technical story, but they have like 5 titles, which is like changes in rules. Not all of them have been implemented. And the UK market, which actually started later, is considered as best practice at the moment. So that's why Malaysia and many other regulators are benchmarking the UK. And I think that within Southeast Asia, Malaysia has a good chance of becoming #1.
In Dubai or in the Middle East, they already launched it, right? So have they started? Because I know they're like one of the top 10 countries that wanted to adopt equity crowdfunding. Or any other countries have actually done it successfully. What can we learn from that?
Yes, as Leo said, like the UK is
okay.
considered to be the one, where there are few players that have been doing it successfully.
Okay.
Some in Australia, there are some players. New Zealand has a new regulation just came up. It's just to see a campaign get funded there as well. In Europe, we are starting to see some countries. Someone came up with very progressive regulation, therefore the business is growing. Other with a bit more like, I would say, less competitive regulation, so the business is not really taking up there, right? But yes, the interesting part, as Leo said, is that Asia has an opportunity here to be leading this industry, and particularly Malaysia and Southeast Asia is on the front seat.
Okay, I'm going to ask all the questions. So, Mike Runner, there's 1, 2. You'll be rewarded handsomely. How come you're taking
2 coffee?
You're giving a woman first? Oh no.
What?
I thought I saw 2 guys put up there. Yes, please, Adrian.
All right. Hi guys. Name's Adrian. So I saw one slide say that you said private registered company. Is that only for, as in Sdn Bhd and PTA Limited,
private
Singapore?
limited.
Or what about sole proprietors or partnerships? Any chance for those guys? And yeah.
So in the absence of seeing the final published rules, what we understand is that there's only 2 segments. One is the private limited companies, and the other is the Securities Commission registered VC funds. So right now there's no carve out or exception for LLPs or sole proprietorships.
Okay.
And I get the impression that equity crowdfunding is only if your company is kind of established already with proper business in place. It's not really for the first 3 years guys. Would you say so?
It's for seed and Series A, right? So as I said, you need to have at least MVP, right? There's nothing different from what's going on offline, right? So we are not adding new. We're just making the process more efficient, faster, and better, right? But in terms of investor appetite, is in the seed funding stage and Series A stage.
Okay, we got 2. Yeah. You got a question, right? Just a moment.
I don't need the mic.
No, we are recording this, so we need your sweet voice.
I'll be on tape.
Yes. Especially when you say something. No, it's okay.
That's
Yeah. You're scaring him.
What's the typical exit strategy? How do these investment ships or these relationships between investor and company normally end? Is it time-based, or are there any other typical ways to end it?
The exit is no different from how the asset class or startups exit today. So it'll either be through trade sales or IPOs. People often query that through crowdfunding, because there are a lot of retail investors or shareholders involved, does that complicate the process? we don't really think so, because if you're a startup and you raise money from, let's say, 5,000 shareholders or investors, you can roll up these investors into one LLP vehicle, right? So when you exit, you're effectively having the investment capital of a few thousand people, but you only need to get buy-in for one shareholder, right? So again, equity crowdfunding is not about inventing a new asset class. The asset class is venture capital, right? It's startups, right? So the exit, everything remains the same. What equity crowdfunding is doing is taking out the friction from the whole process, the friction around, as a business owner, you're an expert at what your business domain is, but you're not necessarily an expert at fundraising. It's taking the friction out of spending hours and hours and hours on structuring a deal or offer, which you'd rather be spending time on growing your business. So it's about all taking out friction. But back to your question, the exit will be the same as all startups today, which is either trade sale or IPO.
How would be, while they pass the mic, because with one or two single investors, you just handle two people, right? But like it or not, even though you have one LLP, some aunties would be like, hey man, you took my 50 grand, and they're like, because they publicly know about your company. So what's stopping that particular auntie to knock on your door? How come I'm not making money yet? So, is there a way to manage that? How do you do that in UK?
Yeah, first of all, there is no, you should not stop for your shareholder to come to you ask for an update, right? Because this is what, remember, they give you money, so you need to, be open to them. So some of these vehicles, the one that they've wrapped, there will be maybe someone representing these investors, right?
Okay, so that's a wrap, okay.
But the reality is that most of the people that invest very little amount of money, right, they will probably be happy to have a quarterly update, right?
Okay.
There won't be people that they want to have active participation on your daily decision on how you run the business. They will not have any board representation, right? So they will be happy, and it will be your responsibility, but not because you went to crowdfunding, but just because you have shareholders to keep them updated. And usually it's a quarterly with a quarterly report, which could be just 2 pages in Word, where you say in these 3 months we have done this, we achieved this, those are the issues, those are the risks, and this is how we're trying to mitigate. And then you can just distribute it electronically back to your shareholder. Yeah.
Do they do that through the Crowdonomic platform?
You can do it through a platform, yes.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, we have a question there.
Yeah. I'm going to be Chinese. I'm going to ask 2 questions. The first question is, the first question is, as an investor, what we're concerned about is liquidity. I understand that you can trade your shares every 6 months for 2 weeks. So what is the steps or procedure that you have to ensure liquidity takes place within the 2 weeks while we sell our shares off? The second question is, do you think within the ASEAN countries, in terms of regulatory framework, it will be sort of similar to the Jobs Act in the US?
Okay.
Normally you don't ask guys 2 questions. They always answer 1, but no worries.
But we have 2.
Okay, so Leo, you want to take 1 question first?
So yeah, I'll answer the first question, right, which is about, I guess, liquidity. So if you are an investor, you know that, again, going back to what we said before, the asset class you are investing is early stage business, right? So highly risk, highly liquid, right? Highly risk because, depending on which stats you are reading, but one out of 10 will succeed, or right? Highly liquid because when you have shares in a private company, you can cash them out as of now, either with an exit strategy, either with the IPO or a trade sale, which if you are lucky will happen in 3 to 5 year times, right? But there is chance that you will get stuck with that investment for longer, right? But that, again, nothing to do with crowdfunding, specific to the asset class. The other side, the flip side of the coin is that you expect, huge return for this type of investment, right? So the secondary market component, right? Again, we are waiting for the regulation to be approved, but as of now, I think it's going to be more like an auction type of things, right? Where every 6 months, there are 2 weeks where existing shareholders of a company, they can say, we put certain number of shares for sale, right? And then, they will put out a price eventually, and people will start to bid for that, right? But this is a great thing. So this is a major improvement introduced by this regulation, because it actually gives you a possibility even if control limited or whatever, to cash out your share before the potential exit. So second question. The job act.
Yeah, so just for the record, I think the Jobs Act was visionary for its time, but by now it's the worst framework globally, right?
Fair enough.
Right.
Okay.
So, and the reason for that is, number one, it's capped at $1 million US, right? Why $1 million US? There's absolutely no reason for that, right? So as an entrepreneur startup, right, you should be able to go through C, Series A, Series B, Series C. This should be a choice given to you and for you to decide how much money you want to raise through this kind of platform, right? This $1 million US cap is completely, what's the polite word for video?
Nonsense.
Nonsense, yes, that's what I was looking
Oh my
for.
God, you can say bullshit, come on.
Right, so that's one. The second is that the types of disclosures that you need to do are so costly that if you add all that up, it's close to 20 or 30% of the amount of money you want to raise, right? That would make your cost of capital one of the most expensive in the world. And who's going to do that, right? And these disclosures have been added and added and added by people on Capitol Hill in the SEC, people who are looking after their own interests, right? So that's why we keep around and going saying that, look, equity crowdfunding is not going to de-risk anything, right? The risk of the asset class remains, right? So it doesn't help to have documents and documents and documents and encyclopedias of risk acknowledgement and so on, right? The risk is venture capital. The risk is always going to be there. So the second thing is the thing around disclosure we don't want to have, right? The third is the cap on, the type of investors is only accredited investors up until Title V, I think, comes in. And this is complete ludicrous as well. The whole point, if you look at the investor side, is that people have probably seen this analysis about the top 1% rich people getting richer and richer and richer, and how the middle class today are going to become the lower middle class in about 10 years' time, right? So it's moving this whole venture capital equation away from a elitist game to something that investors should be able to invest in as part of their overall investment portfolio, right? So if I'm rich, which I'm not, right, I'll be spending about 30% of my portfolio or my wealth on property, about 30 on public markets, right, and then about 10% and the balance on alternative investments, of which half might be venture capital. And that's how I increase my wealth, right? And there's no reason why, just because you don't have $10 million, $20 million in wealth, just because you don't have that, you're left out of this opportunity. So when we go to markets, we say, do not benchmark the Jobs Act. It was visionary for its time. It had the intention that it would be phased approach, but right now it's completely outdated, right? Each Asian market has its own market need, right, and should be able to develop its own unique framework according to its needs.
Actually, if you want to know a real-life experience of how the Jobs Act affected crowdfunding process, how many of you listen to the Startup podcast by Gimlet Media? No one listens to podcasts? Okay. Okay, if you go to Gimlet Media, there's this guy who's doing a podcast on how to start a podcast company. Yeah, it's very meta, but so what this guy do is that he record every conversation he has. He was pitching to Mike Zucker of Twitter. He bloody recorded the whole conversation. And he actually talks about, I think episode 7 or 8, they went through crowdfunding because they wanted to raise up to 1.5 mil. The last 700K they wanted to use crowdfunding. And there was this good friend that wanted to put in, I think, 30 to 40 grand, but she couldn't because of the Jobs Act. So Alex Bloomberg, who's the main character of the startup, it's a real life show. If you go and watch it, it's really live. So they actually explain how they talked to some government officials about it, interviewed a few people, why, like you said, the middle class who are sometimes cash rich, maybe they are just, their portfolio is a bit, they can't invest in crowdfunding, which I think is not really, I don't think the Asian countries are actually adopting that. Like you say, it's really, it was launched in 2011, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Obama launched it, so it's pretty outdated. Yeah, go to Gimlet Media, listen to the Startup podcast. Episode 8 talks about it. Yeah. Any other? Yes. Where's the mic guy? Oh, you have a question? Okay.
Yeah, I have a question. For example, today, me, myself, and Marco, right, we are going for the equity crowdfunding. However, our company is not being managed just like the public listed co, where we don't have audit committee to fully oversee all the finance and so on. How can we actually convince the public that we are not misusing the public fund, that their money are actually in safe hands?
Yeah, so about the audited financials, right? So part of the framework that says that if you want to raise more than $500,000 ringgit, you must have audited financials, right? If you want to raise less, they are, nice to have, but they're not. It's not a requirement. An advice, always have it. Maybe just invest in the cheapest, audited company ever, but just that will really give a lot of reassurance to the investors, right? It's money well spent, right? But then again, how do you convince investors you are the right person, that you're going to not misuse the funds? It's about credibility, it's about transparency, it's about whatever information you put out there. People will go through it. If they're not happy, there's something missing, they will ask you a question. Is the way you answer to those questions? Is the way other people commented on your answer? So it's a crowdsourced due diligence, right? So you will be very exposed during that 1 or 2 months, right? You will need to prove that you are the right person, that you know your business, you can defend your business, and and you need to convince them that you are the right person to invest.
I know it differs from business to business and market to market, but what's the usual expected returns? Because you're not talking to savvy investors all the time, so it's like this really rich aunt of mine. It's like she'll be asking a question, hey, how much can I get? So like based in UK, so just name a few that you know.
It's a difficult question, right? Because it really depends on which industry you are in, how your business is doing, and which type of exit you go for. So I guess it's more like it's risk return, right? So I can't tell you how much you will get, because the probability that you will get, it has to be weighted with the probability you get it, right? So for you, it's a portfolio approach, right? So I have this money that I'm ready to invest in a high risk class. So what are the options like there? I can put it on the stock market, right? Whatever is the return, I don't know. You look your index, right? I can put it in this company, which I really trust the team. They really convince me, and maybe they're going to be the next Facebook, right? But as advice, we always say you need to put the amount of money that you are ready to lose, right?
Put the amount of money there. Well, for the investors.
Exactly. The investors say just put as much as you are ready to lose, right? Okay. And then, think about which other alternative you have, right? Okay. And then pick the one that you convince you more.
So to make sure they are a bit savvy as well when it comes to, okay. How come it's only guys asking questions?
I'm also Chinese, so I have 2 questions as well.
What's wrong with you? You are disgracing my race, come on.
Okay, the first one is...
first question.
$5. Okay, so one question.
Yeah, sure. So the first one is regarding a business model. I want to understand, I'm curious to know how many % do you actually take from every transaction?
Okay, so we haven't disclosed yet for us, but I tell you in the industry in general, right? So the cost of capital, someone calculated the cost of capital for an entrepreneur to go and do fundraising through VC or angels, taking everything in account, due diligence cost, legal cost, the time that you spend to pitch to all these guys, is about 13% of the amount that you raise, right? So true crowdfunding has to be cheaper, right? Because it's online, streamlined, more efficient. If you look about what's going on around, it's around 5-10% in the UK, in the US, right? There are also other type of way that some operator that get just a share of the amount raised. Other that are more like fixed cost for extra services, and so on and so forth. So there are different business models.
Oh, so you can actually trade that for shares instead of getting a fee?
It depends on the regulation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think in Malaysia they allow you to get shares in lieu of percentage fees.
Okay.
Some markets they won't allow it because the marketplace needs to be neutral.
I see. So okay, got it.
Second question.
You remember? Okay.
From a general public perspective, right? How do you know that they are ready to do crowdfunding?
I'm not sure I understand the question. From general public.
Yeah. So crowdfunding is basically to ask funds from the general public, apart from the investors, right? So how do you know, or what research that you have done to know that everyone is ready to invest some form of money?
Right. Okay. So let me take that one. So typically, any market you go to, right, whether it's India, China, Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, and so on, between about 3 to 12% of the adult population is already putting money through what's called informal VC, right, which is basically investments in startups, right? So that's already happening today, right? Of that 2 to 12%, about half of that is what's called angels. So it's not your immediate, father and mother and so on. The instruments vary, right? So sometimes it'll be in exchange for interest rate return, right? In some cases, it'll be for shares or equity, right? So in general, the markets are already there, right? And it's just a matter of how to activate that, right? So when we think about priority of markets for activation, we look at a couple of things, right? So one is we look at the proliferation of social media, just because distribution, validation, and using social media is such a key thing, right? So that's one. The second thing is we look at actually if investors are open to new financial instruments. And I think that, there are, BCG and all these other firms, and from time to time will do reports on that. And I think Malaysia actually ranks high in terms of investors trying out new asset classes, right? The third is basically what we see. So we'll go to some markets and say that, look, really good entrepreneurs, but I think maybe it's, maybe 2 years too early for this kind of stuff. I mean, we've kind of walked away from some markets. I think that when we came to Malaysia like 2.5 years ago, it felt a bit too early. But with all that's going on right now, we feel that, and especially with Malaysian startups, government agencies, incubators, etc., looking outwards, right? So having Malaysian champion startups go to Southeast Asia and so on, we think it's a really good time actually to introduce this, because these guys create visibility for many other startups as well.
Second last question. Unless you want to take two.
Nah,
okay.
One will do.
Be a good Chinese, yes.
Following up with that, what are you doing or plan to do to attract retail investors' eyeballs?
Sorry, attract retail investors.
Eyeballs. How do they come to know?
Yeah, so there are two components, right? One is education, right? So a lot of people in this room knows about crowdfunding, right? But a lot of people out there, they don't, right? So we do a lot of events. We do a lot of events like this or workshop where both for investor and for entrepreneur to explain how crowdfunding is, especially for retail investor, right? So one is through education, and the other one is through like every other business, marketing.
Yeah, so we haven't still gotten there here in Malaysia, but in Singapore, we're in the major newspaper every other week, right? So this is our platform to raising awareness in the general public, right? My general thought is that to get retail investors, you don't target retail investors. You actually target notable angel investors or bigger investment funds, right? Actually to get interested in the website and also the companies which are listed on the website. And through these kind of like, reputational investors getting involved, that's how you actually get retail investors interested, and that's how you create this whole dynamic, right? So we're not eBay. We're not going to spend millions and millions of dollars on SEO and do meta tags, H1 tags, H2 tags, blah, blah, blah. What we'll do is we'll think about how actually marketplaces develop more from a financial point of view, right? So that's why we say it's fintech, right? Sometimes we put on a technology hat and sometimes we put our financial services hat. So if you think that, you wanted to develop a bond market, or you wanted to develop a stock market, or you want to develop a new kind of asset class, there are different ways to build up that market versus a pure, web-based marketplace.
Last question for the night.
You mentioned that social media is going to be integrated into your system. How does that work? How do you all use Facebook or Twitter to?
As you see fit, right? So when you talk about your business, when you talk about your products, when you talk about your team, you think about how you're using your Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, platforms, and each of them probably have a different positioning for your business, right? The whole point for us is to basically remove those restrictions which disallow you from using them today, right? So, you know, you should feel fit to use any of these social media platforms, right? Because our job is to get those barriers away, right? If we started to tell you how to use each individual platform, we'll do it out of a good spirit of supporting and advice, but it's ultimately up to you to use that new degree of freedom to basically raise funds as any way you want.
Okay, any final advice that you want to give to the crowd? Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Again, if you want to know more, if you are interested in raising a fund through a crowdfunding campaigns, come to our website, drop an email.
Applying for a job.
If you want to apply for a job and then raise a campaign is also fine.
Okay. Leo, final words?
So the reason why we're excited about this is because for the first time in close to a century, right, the keys to the kingdom are in our hands, right? Everything you see in front of you has been, you know, whether it's that video camera, whether it's the stage and so on, has been decided by bankers, or it's been decided by, you know, investment bankers and so on and so forth. People who are not interested about innovation, but people who are just interested in, you know, some checklists and so on, right? For the first time, startups and entrepreneurs can actually take this newfound liberty to raise money for themselves, right? And for the market, like investors, to also give birth to products and services that they really want, as opposed to being handpicked by someone else, right? Malaysia, you know, you are in a very, very good place, and I really encourage you to grasp this newfound liberty to really grow the startup ecosystem here, and I'm sure that you'll do a great job.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.